Chapter 1. You're playing a role. No one asked you to play. You're trying to be something she never asked for, and that's why it keeps falling flat in ways you don't understand. You walk into interactions already positioned like a boyfriend, already thinking ahead, already carrying an energy that assumes something needs to build. It shows up in how you talk, how you text, how you move around her without even realizing it. You think you're doing things right, being intentional, being respectful, being structured. But what she feels is something else entirely, something heavier than what she signed up for. You've probably noticed how things start off fine, sometimes even better than fine. There's interest, there's engagement. There's a moment where it feels like everything is aligning. Then something shifts, and it's subtle enough that you can't point to it. She starts responding differently, the energy softens, the interaction doesn't carry the same weight it had before. You try to correct it, thinking maybe you just need to be more present, more attentive, more consistent. And that's where it starts slipping even faster. You're moving with a kind of seriousness that doesn't match the stage you're in. You're thinking about where things are going before she's even decided how she feels about where things are. That forward-thinking energy comes through in ways you don't notice. It's in your tone, your pacing, how quickly you lean into something that hasn't had time to develop. And the moment that happens, the interaction stops feeling light and starts feeling like it carries expectation. She feels that expectation immediately, even if she doesn't think about it consciously. It's not something she analyzes, it's something she reacts to. The moment things start feeling like they're heading towards structure, commitment, or definition too early, her engagement shifts. It's not because she doesn't like you, it's because the energy doesn't match what she's looking for in that moment. And that mismatch is what creates the distance you keep trying to fix. You've been approaching this like there's a path you need to follow, like there's a progression you need to move through to get to a certain outcome. That mindset shapes how you interact. Because you're always moving towards something. You're not just in the moment, you're trying to build something from it. And that intention shows up, even when you think you're being subtle about it. Here's the part that hits harder than you expect. She can feel that you're trying to turn this into something before she's even decided what it is. That alone is enough to change how she engages with you. It makes everything feel slightly off, slightly forced, even if nothing obvious has happened. And once that feeling is there, it doesn't go away just because you try to adjust what you're doing. You've probably thought to yourself that you're just being serious about what you want, that you're not trying to waste time, that you're approaching things with intention. That sounds good in your head, but in practice, it creates pressure in situations that don't need it. That pressure doesn't push things forward, it makes them harder to stay in. It changes how the interaction feels before it ever has a chance to develop naturally. The truth is, you're stepping into a role before she's invited you into it. You're acting like a boyfriend in moments where she's still deciding if she even likes being around you consistently. That gap between where you are and where you're acting like you are creates a disconnect. It makes your behavior feel out of place, even if your intentions are good. And once she feels that disconnect, she adjusts. She pulls back slightly, becomes less engaged, less responsive, less invested. You notice that shift and try to close the gap, thinking more effort will fix it. But more effort in the same direction only increases the pressure she's already feeling. It doesn't bring her closer. It makes the space between you more obvious. You're not getting ignored because you're doing nothing. You're getting ignored because you're doing too much in a direction she never chose. That's the part most men don't want to hear, because it forces them to look at how they've been moving this entire time. And once you see it clearly, it becomes harder to ignore. If this is landing in a way that feels personal, that's because you've been here before. You felt that shift, that moment where things changed and you didn't understand why. Tap the like button and subscribe, because what you're about to understand next is what actually changes how you move in these situations. Chapter 2. You keep trying to secure something that was never offered. You felt it when she first started responding less, and instead of stepping back, you leaned in. The replies got shorter, the timing changed, the energy shifted just enough to make you notice. You didn't sit with it, you reacted to it. You sent something to bring it back, then something else to keep it going, trying to return the interaction to where it was a few days ago. That reaction feels natural in the moment, but it changes how everything unfolds from that point forward. There was a situation that played out exactly like this, and it looked ordinary from the outside. A guy met a girl, conversation started easily, there was engagement, there was interest, everything felt aligned at the beginning. They texted for a few days, light conversations, some back and forth, nothing heavy. Then her replies started slowing down, not disappearing, just changing enough to be noticeable. Instead of letting that shift show him where things stood, he tried to correct it. He started sending more, checking in more often, trying to recreate the energy that was there at the start. His messages became more frequent, more intentional, like he was trying to rebuild something that was slipping. She responded, but not in the same way, just enough to keep it going without fully leaning back in. That pattern repeated until the interaction felt one-sided, even though it didn't start that way. Eventually, it stopped altogether, without a clear ending, just a gradual fade. What happened there wasn't about what he said. It was about what he was trying to secure. He felt the shift and tried to hold on to something that was already moving away. That effort changed how he showed up, how he communicated, how he carried himself in the interaction. It made everything feel heavier, more intentional, more focused on keeping it alive. And that shift is what made it easier for her to disengage. You've done something similar, even if it didn't play out exactly the same way. You felt a change, and instead of observing it, you moved to fix it. You tried to bring things back to where they were, instead of accepting where they were going. That instinct comes from wanting to maintain something that felt good. But in doing that, you changed your position in the interaction without realizing it. There's a difference between engaging and trying to secure something. When you're engaging, you're present, responding, allowing things to unfold. When you're trying to secure something, your behavior shifts toward holding on to it. That shift shows up in how often you reach out, how you phrase things, how much attention you give. It creates a different kind of energy, one that feels more invested than the situation actually calls for. She feels that difference without needing to think about it. The moment your behavior starts coming from a place of holding on to something, it changes how she engages. It introduces a kind of pressure that wasn't there before, even if it's subtle. That pressure doesn't pull her in, it makes it easier for her to step back. And once that pattern starts, it becomes harder to reverse. You might think that effort shows interest, that consistency shows value, that staying present keeps things alive. In certain situations, that's true. But when that effort is driven by trying to maintain something that's already shifting, it carries a different weight. It doesn't feel like engagement, it feels like attachment to a moment that's already passed. You can see this clearly when you look back at those interactions. The point where things changed wasn't random. It was when you started reacting instead of observing, when you started trying to control the direction instead of letting it reveal itself. That shift is easy to miss in real time, but obvious once you step back from it. The moment you stop trying to secure something, you start seeing it for what it actually is. You see whether she's leaning in or pulling back without trying to change it. That clarity gives you something you didn't have before, an understanding of where things stand without guessing. And once you have that, your behavior changes naturally without needing to force it. You've been trying to hold on to interactions that were already showing you their direction. And that's what's been keeping you stuck in the same cycle without realizing it. Chapter 3. She's measuring freedom, not effort. Watch how she behaves when there's space around you. Not the space you talk about, the space you actually create by how you live your day, how you spend your time, how reachable you are without thinking about it. She notices whether your life keeps moving when she isn't present, whether your plans stay intact, whether your attention has other places it naturally goes. That observation happens quietly while you think the interaction is just conversation. It tells her what your world looks like without her in it. You've made yourself easy to reach in ways that feel small at first. You answer quickly, you adjust your schedule, you keep your phone close, you leave doors open so the interaction can continue whenever she wants. That accessibility feels like effort on your side, like you're showing up and staying present. Over time, it creates a picture of you that doesn't need to be filled in. She can tell where you are, how you'll respond, how available you'll be across the day. A different picture forms when your time has edges. You move through your day with commitments that don't shift, with routines that keep their place, with priorities that remain visible even when she enters the frame. Messages get answered when you reach them. Plans stay where you put them. Your attention returns to what you were already doing. That rhythm shows her something without you explaining it. It shows her that your life doesn't rearrange itself around the interaction. She pays attention to how you handle invitations into your time. When you suggest meeting up, the way you set it, the way you keep it, the way you move on if it doesn't line up, tells her more than the words themselves. It reveals whether your time has value to you, whether it holds its shape when there's resistance, whether it changes easily when there's a small obstacle. Those details don't need to be discussed for them to be understood. You might think she's looking at how much you give, how often you reach out, how consistently you keep things going. What she's actually reading is how much room your life has outside of her. That room creates a sense of curiosity, a sense that there's more happening that she hasn't seen yet. It gives her something to step into rather than something that's already been laid out. You can feel the difference in your own behavior when your day is full versus when it's empty. When your time is already spoken for, your messages come from where you are instead of where you're trying to be. When your time is open, the interaction becomes something you fill that space with, and that changes how you engage. She notices which one it is by how you move. There's a point where she starts testing the edges without calling it that. She suggests something last minute, she takes longer to respond, she shifts timing to see what happens on your side. Your response to those moments tells her whether your life holds its structure or bends to accommodate the interaction. That response becomes part of how she decides how to engage moving forward. Your calendar, your habits, your routines all speak for you before you say anything. They show whether you're building something that exists beyond this interaction or whether this interaction is what your day revolves around. She doesn't need a conversation to understand that. It shows up in how you reply, how you plan, how you move through small decisions. When you move with your own rhythm, conversations sit inside your life instead of becoming the center of it. That changes how everything feels on her side, because she's stepping into something that's already moving. It creates a sense that your time has weight, that your attention has direction, that your life doesn't pause for the interaction. You've been trying to show value through effort. What she's reading is how your life holds its shape when she's not there. Chapter 4. She watches what you accept. There are small moments where something gets said or done, and you feel a reaction rise up before you even think about it. It could be a late reply paired with a casual excuse, a plan that gets shifted at the last minute, a tone that carries just a little more edge than it should. You feel it instantly, that slight internal signal that something doesn't sit right. Most of the time, you smooth it over in your head, tell yourself it's nothing serious, and move forward like it didn't register. That decision becomes part of how she understands you. She's paying attention to those moments in a way that doesn't require a conversation. When something small crosses a line and nothing happens on your end, it creates a new reference point. It tells her what you're willing to let pass, what doesn't change your behavior, what doesn't affect how you engage. That information builds quietly through repetition, shaping how she interacts with you over time. It doesn't need to be tested directly. It reveals itself through your responses. You might think keeping things smooth preserves the interaction. It feels easier to move past it, keep the flow, avoid turning a small moment into something bigger. That approach creates a pattern where boundaries aren't visible. They're implied by what you allow to continue. Over time, that pattern becomes the standard for how she treats your time, your attention, your presence. It settles into something that feels normal because it's been repeated enough. There's a different feel when you acknowledge those moments without turning them into a scene. A simple shift in how you respond, a change in how you move forward, a clear signal that something mattered. It doesn't require explanation. It shows up in how you adjust your behavior. That adjustment communicates more than a long conversation would because it's tied to action. She reads that immediately and updates how she engages with you. You've probably seen how quickly dynamics change based on what someone accepts. When a standard is visible, behavior aligns with it over time. When it isn't, behavior drifts in the direction that requires the least resistance. That drift doesn't come from intention, it comes from what's been allowed to continue without consequence. And once it settles, it shapes the entire interaction. You can feel it in how plans get made and kept. When something is set and it holds, it creates a sense of reliability that becomes part of the dynamic. When it shifts repeatedly without acknowledgement, it creates a different pattern, one where your time becomes flexible by default. That difference affects how much weight your plans carry and how seriously they're treated moving forward. The way you handle interruptions to your time sends a clear message. A canceled plan, a late arrival, a change in tone during a conversation, all carry information. Your response to those moments determines whether that information becomes part of the pattern. She doesn't need to be told where the line is. She learns it through how you react when it's approached. There's a point where your behavior sets the pace for everything that follows. It defines how much structure exists, how much flexibility is assumed, how much respect is expected without being stated. That pace becomes the environment she steps into every time she interacts with you. It shapes her decisions in ways that don't require discussion. You don't need to make anything heavy to make it clear. A consistent response, a steady adjustment, a visible standard does the work on its own. It shows that your time and attention have value, and that value doesn't fluctuate based on the moment. She aligns with that over time because it's consistent. The way you respond to what you accept determines how the interaction evolves. It becomes the framework everything else sits inside, guiding how she shows up with you from that point forward. Chapter 5. You stop trying to be chosen. There's a point where something shifts internally, and it doesn't announce itself when it happens. You stop looking at every interaction like it needs to turn into something, and you start seeing it for what it is while it's happening. That shift doesn't come from frustration or giving up. It comes from clarity. You understand what you're looking at without needing to shape it into something else. And once that understanding is there, your behavior changes without effort. You begin to notice how much of your past interactions were built around being chosen. The way you spoke, the way you showed up, the way you adjusted your energy all pointed toward that outcome. It wasn't obvious in the moment, but it was present in how you moved. That intention influenced everything, even when you thought you were just being yourself. And that influence shaped how those interactions unfolded. When that need fades, something else takes its place. You start paying attention to how she shows up instead of focusing on how you're being received. You notice consistency, effort, engagement, and how those things hold over time. Your attention shifts toward what's in front of you instead of what you want it to become. That change affects how you respond, how you engage, how you move forward. You're no longer trying to position yourself in a way that makes you more appealing. You're just present, observing, responding based on what's actually happening. That presence creates a different kind of interaction, one where there's no underlying pressure to achieve a specific outcome. It allows things to develop naturally or fade without resistance, and that freedom changes how everything feels. She senses that shift without needing it explained. The interaction no longer feels like it's leading somewhere predetermined. It feels open but grounded, like it can move in different directions without being forced. That creates a kind of engagement that's different from what she's used to. It holds attention because it doesn't rely on constant effort to sustain it. You start recognizing patterns more clearly, seeing how people engage over time instead of focusing on isolated moments. You notice who leans in, who pulls back, who maintains consistency, who shifts when things aren't going their way. That awareness gives you a clearer picture of what you're dealing with. And once you have that, your decisions become more straightforward. You don't feel the need to hold on to interactions that don't align with what you're seeing. You allow them to fade without trying to revive them. That doesn't come from indifference, it comes from understanding. You're not reacting to what's happening, you're responding to it with clarity. That response shapes how you move forward without needing to force anything. There's a difference in how you carry yourself when you're not seeking validation from the interaction. Your tone stays consistent, your pace stays the same, your behavior reflects where you are instead of where you're trying to get. That consistency creates a kind of presence that's noticeable without being forced. It changes how people engage with you because it feels grounded. If this connects with something you've experienced, say something below that reflects that shift. Share this with someone who's been moving through the same patterns without seeing them clearly. And subscribe if you want more of this, because once you understand it, you move differently without needing to think about it constantly. That's where the difference becomes clear, in how you see interactions and how you move within them. It doesn't come from trying to be someone else, it comes from understanding yourself in a way that changes how you show up.